I'm in med school. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Hello, beautiful people. If this is your first time on my channel, you are most definitely welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. It's been like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months, whatever the case may be. I don't know, but you can tell eyebrows are done. It is Christmas Day, yay. And it's really just giving hyperpigmentation all over the place, which is why I color correct. But still, we move either way. Ooh, child, 2022, it was quite a year. It was not a good year, I must admit, but I'm alive, so I guess a win is a win, right? Like, this year really tried me by my edges, and I'm not even gonna lie. Like, God really put the good sis on his strongest warriors list, and I didn't even know until I was on the battlefield getting dragged. Like, it's the audacity for me. However, I will say that this year did come with a lot of lessons learned, some growing pains, and I hope that the strength and the resilience that came with this year will carry me on into 2023. But I'm gonna need God to remove me from this strongest soldiers list. He needs to bench me, take me off the field, put me on the practice team, and I'm gonna need to make sure that I am signed up for the soft girl life all of 2023. You know, since it's the end of the year, I thought it'd be nice to do a final check-in and also just share like a couple of like the lessons I feel like I took away from this year, even though it's like honestly one of the worst years of my life, probably the worst year to date of my life in the 26 years I've lived on this earth, to be honest. I think for me, the first lesson that I learned was we can have a plan and expect life to go one way, and things just happen, and we have to come to terms with it, honestly. And we have to learn to adjust to the new plan. And that was the theme of 2022. Like, that was the actual prophecy of 2022. If 2022 were to have a prophecy, that should have been prophesied into 2022 at the beginning of 2022, if that makes any sense at all. Like, I think I had a very specific plan or vision or idea of how I wanted or expected this year to go, and God said, LOL. He said, log out for me, honey. He said, go log out. And sure enough, not only did I log out, the computer shut down. That's what happened. The computer shut down, rebooted, and the hard drive said error. And the good sis didn't even have a backup. That's what 2022 was giving. And the hardest thing for me this year was like radical acceptance of a lot of change, being uncomfortable with that change, and navigating that change was like the biggest challenge for me, and making the best of it. And I think that's just a human thing. It's not the easiest thing to do. And you know, having a very type A personality where you have to plan, you have like a step by step, you know, thing of like, okay, this next and this next and this next. It was a very, very growing, like growth year in that way. And it wasn't always fun. There was a lot of tears through that growth, let me tell you. But I think when I got through the end of like the different life changes and things like that, some of which I'm still working through, but I feel like when I got through the end of those obstacles or things, I was able to kind of look back and be like, okay, that wasn't so bad. I got through it. That change wasn't the worst change in the world. It actually worked out. I'm still alive. We move. And at the end of the day, telling myself, like, you're gonna be okay. Like, you will be all right. And it's hard to appreciate when you're going through it and when you're just like, but that was like the biggest thing for me this year. And I guess that's the thing about life. Like, no one said it was going to be easy. No one said it was going to be fair. And it's kind of weird because I think there's a small part of me that's just kind of like, God, when am I going to catch a break? Like, at what point can my life just like be perfect? You know, like, don't I deserve the soft life like at all times, forever? And I think come to terms with that, like, there's no point in time or life where like everything is gonna go right or according to plan. So I'ma just have to get over it. the next lesson learned, or like I guess I came to like fully appreciate, is to not underestimate the effect that like stress can have on your body, your well-being, and your health. We hear and we like say like, stress can manifest not only in terms of like mental health but also like physical health. It's like yeah, but this year I really came to realize that like, oh, that's actually like a real thing. And when your body is really at high chronic levels of stress, it will show and it will let you know. And that is something I didn't understand the full effect or extent that stress can actually really mess up your body. Now I know. I think I'm learning to respect the impact that it can have on health a lot more than I did, I guess, before. It's really important to manage stress. It's really important to recognize when you are getting to a certain level of stress, and it's really important to find ways to manage it and to remove things that make it worse. And we can't always do that to the best of our ability, but it's so important to remove unnecessary stress from your life. Let me tell you that. Let me say that, I guess, because there's certain things. If you have a job that's stressful, you can't go quit your job, I guess, if you need to put food on your table. But unnecessary stress, try to remove from your life, because you don't need it. And that brings me to my next point, is as much as you love or care about certain people or relationships or friendships in your life, if they are emotionally draining, if they are not feeding your soul, if they are adding more stress to your life than it's worth, let go and let God, please. For the sake of your mental health, for the sake of your physical health, for the sake of anything that is good with the world, let them go. It is not worth that added stress in your life at all. It is important to surround yourself with people who are aligned with your personal values, your personal goal, people who will fill your cup and not empty it. Like, one of the things I am learning and practicing, because it's so hard for me, because I'm the kind of person that like, I don't have a big circle. I keep my circle very small. Like, I'm one of those no new friends kind of person. Like, I truly embody no new friends to the core of who I am. And with that, I like just have such a big heart, and I just like give completely to the people that I do keep in my circle. But learning that like, if something is just like draining you and you just feel like, I am putting in so much effort and I'm leaving this so drained when I have like medical school and all these other things that are stressing me out, it is okay to just be like, you know what, I need to take a step back from this and not feel bad about it, and setting those boundaries and allowing yourself to not feel guilty about setting those boundaries, which is so hard for me because I just want to like love on everybody, and I will feel bad if I'm like, you know, but I'm learning that at some point you need to recognize when you're on empty, and then you need to choose yourself first, and recognize when a friendship or relationship is like unequal, and if that's the case, equally walking away from that too. And I was having a conversation with one of my like long childhood friends, like I'm talking like long time, like 10 plus years. And one of the things that me and her were talking about is the concept of like investing in friendship, because me and her were talking about this, about setting boundaries with friends, and like sometimes having to take a step back or walk away from like relationships or friendships where you feel like, wow, like this friend is like taking me for granted, or this friend is taking advantage of like the fact that I give so much, or the fact that, you know, whatever the case may be, that, you know, I go out of my way for this person. So we were just talking about that, especially with friends in general. And one of the things me and her were talking about was also the concept of, are we investing into friendships where that person has constantly shown up for us, and are we sowing back into friendships that need watering, you know? Because it's funny how like sometimes we invest so much into relationships and friendships that are draining, and we're abandoning other friendships where the other person is sowing so much into us. And I think taking away from that conversation taught me that like, instead of being emotionally drained by certain friendships or relationships that stress me out, why not refocus that energy into myself, but also the friendships that have been showing up for me, right? So that way it feels mutually beneficial, and that way I won't feel as stressed or won't feel as taken for granted, you know? And that's something I've been thinking about, and something I'm trying to practice into the new year, is that what people show up for me on a day-to-day basis, and how can I water those friendships more? And now how can I appreciate those friendships more? And how can I show up more in those friendships, but also recognizing what are areas of growth for me as a person, and how can I acknowledge those areas of growth in those friendships and be vulnerable, saying like, hey, this is my areas of growth, so I may not be able to show up in those kind of ways because this is where I need to grow, right? And sometimes being vulnerable about that, as opposed to just not acknowledging it, can help friendships so much more, because you're actually able to say like, this may be a need you have, and I'm acknowledging that like this may be an area of growth for me, and just that acknowledgement alone can help the friendship. And these are really important conversations to have, especially in adult friendships where you're in the working world or you're in grad school, where the kind of capacity you have to show up in friendships or relationships is going to be so different, because there's only so much like capacity I personally know I have in general, just as a person of who I am. But then like add being in the stress of being in medical school and like all of that stuff. Ooh, child, listen. But at the same time, I think I do a pretty good job, all things considered. I try. Another thing I've learned, and this is not just from my own experiences, but just also like friends and other people and just like things throughout this year, is advocacy is so important in like all aspects of your life. Like no matter what we're talking about, if it's school, friendships, relationships, education, setting boundaries, like no matter what we're talking about, self-advocacy is such an important skill to build and continue building throughout your life. You know, making the decision to show up for yourself every single day is so important, you know, and you will be the first advocate you ever have for yourself. If you do not start building that skill now, it's going to be hard to like find people to advocate for you. That's not to say that if you struggle with advocating for yourself, you're not going to find advocates, but the stronger of a self-advocate you are, the easier it is to find people who will advocate for you and to get people to advocate for you, because you'll be able to find those people who can speak on your behalf, because you would have convinced them, I need you to step up for me. But also advocating for yourself in friendship, saying this is what I need from you in this friendship. Advocating for yourself in school, for your school, saying this is what I need from the school. Advocating for yourself at the workplace is so important. Like you need to be able to say what you need and say it in a timely manner, because holding on to your needs and not saying anything can lead to resentment and will inhibit you from getting the things you need in life or in a timely manner, no matter what it is. But also advocate for yourself with your own relationship with yourself. If you know that you need to take care of, manage your stress, do what you need to do that, right? Find ways to take care of yourself. In healthcare, do that as well. If you know something is not right, speak up. Don't let your concerns be like ignored. And I think the last thing that I've come to appreciate is, this is something I've obviously known for a very long time, so it's not like new to me per se, but I think I'm off like time and time again I'm like reminded of this, and I feel like it's something important to share with you because I've observed this with a lot of people. I feel like I really have to say something about it again as well. People need to stop using social media to make assumptions about the status of somebody's well-being, their emotional state, their health, or just their overall existence, because you never truly know what's happening behind the scenes. And it is a very dangerous thing, especially with somebody you do not know. You know, and like too often, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, I mean less so I would say YouTube because I haven't like posted in months, but when people make comments that insinuate or make assumptions, you know, even though oftentimes they tend to be well intended, but they insinuate that they are assuming this person is in a good place or a good state of mind or whatever the case may be, I'm just kind of like, ma'am, do you even know me? Have we spoken before? Have we had a conversation for you to make an assumption or a comment off of a picture I've posted or a caption that's 3 sentences long? Like, come on here. Like, are we really gonna make some assumptions off of that, off of a snapshot here? And of course, I think for me, when I post on social media, I do try to show up as authentic as possible, and I can't speak for others how they choose to show up on the internet. That one is none of my business, but do try to show up as authentic as possible. because that's part of my brand. That's who I am. And I also recognize that this is all people have to work with, right? So it's not like that's the point of social media. Like, that's all they have to work with. It's not like these people know me from anywhere. But I think, like, even for me too, when I follow other people on social media, I try not to project or make assumptions off of what I see, and I take what I see like for face value, what I see, you know? And I don't make any big claims or assumptions from what I see, because I recognize that there's a greater complexity to a person and their life than what they post on the internet. If I truly wanted to know how somebody I follow on Instagram or whatever was doing, I would just reach out to them privately and ask them how they're doing, you know? I would either DM them or ask for their number and say like, hey, how are you doing? Let's check in, let's FaceTime. And that's what I've literally been doing like for the last month or so. Like, I'll reach out to people I care about that I haven't spoken to in a while, and I'll be like, hey, how are you doing? I just want to check in. Do you have time to FaceTime? I'd love to know how med school is going, or how whatever's going. Or I've gone to, like, you know, drinks or dinner with friends in the last couple of weeks just to check in and see how they were doing, because I could have seen them post stories and stuff on Instagram and assume that, okay, they're posting, they're alive, they're cool. But I recognize there's so much more complexity to that. And to be honest, I'm so glad I've been doing that, because in checking with friends and having dinner with them or drinks, I've been finding that a lot of us are like going through some of the same stuff, and it's been kind of like comforting. Not that I'm happy that my friends are struggling or whatever, but it's been comforting because I'm finding like, wow, like we can like support each other. And I otherwise would not have known that unless I checked in with them and we went out and we talked and we, you know, confided in each other and said, how are we actually doing, right? As opposed to just looking at their stories and saying, oh, they're doing well. And you know, even my own friends, my like real friends, they never use social media to gauge how I'm doing. If they just text me or call me or FaceTime me. So I just kind of find it weird for, you know, people to comment or make these assumptions, or even just kind of the things they say. I'm just like, okay, go off, sis. I don't know where you're getting this assumption from, but okay, if that's what you want to believe, I'll just let you continue believing that, even though we've never spoken before and I don't know you. But I guess that's maybe like the beauty of social media. We, to some extent, take people we look up to, or in some odd way, the people we follow get to be whoever we want them to be in our heads, and we're allowed to like keep that image of who they are. And I guess we're allowed to ignore the fact that they have a life outside of social media and there's so much more complexity to them. And maybe that's what the beauty of social media is that for a moment in time we can forget or we are able to believe that there is this homogenous picture or imagery or image of who this person is, what they stand for, and like what's going on in their life. And maybe that's what the beauty of social media is, but I think sometimes that can be very dangerous, because then it creates an illusion for us of what life should be like, or what our life should be like, or a comparison point of this person's life looks this way, why isn't mine going as well, or why isn't mine seemingly as smooth, or why am I not as successful as this person, or whatever the case may be. So we got to be careful, man. But I also recognize that social media is the only content or window into my life that a lot of my followers have. So they have nothing else to go by, right? Unlike my real friends who have other means of access. So it's a tricky thing, but I think it's still worth mentioning, and something we should all carry with us and think about, is that when I am consuming content on the internet, or when I am following people I really admire or I'm inspired by, or that give me motivation to follow my own dreams, I need to recognize that everything I see is not the entire picture. And I need to keep that in mind when I want to make conclusions or assumptions, or I should keep that in mind when I am curious about something or how I should approach something. And sometimes that's why it's better to ask questions than make comments, right? And sometimes that's why it's better to reach out privately than make an assumption publicly. I just say it as a cautionary tale. We should all use social media with a grain of salt, and some people are more authentic on the internet than others. I personally do try to show up as real as can be. But then again, if you ask any of my real friends, if you ask anyone who really knows me, they will tell you I am a very, very private person. They will tell you I am a very, very small circle kind of girl. They will tell you that like I am an introvert to my core, which if you look at my social media, if you look at my YouTube, you might not even believe that, you know? So people, human beings are very complex. And that's why I say when you follow your favorite social media influencers and you see this picture, this image of medical school being glamorous, and when you're watching that 30-second reel of them going to the gym and Starbucks and studying on 50 times speed with their iPad and all that kind of stuff, it's worth it to pause and take a minute and take a second and ask yourself, am I really getting the full picture of what it's like to be in medical school? Because behind that 30-second reel, I can promise you, there's a lot of tears, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, strained relationships, friendships, you know, a lot of struggle that is not captured in that 30-second reel. With that being said, because I feel like now I'm just like putting a damper on this whole little, what was supposed to be a little mini check-in, and now it's like, dang, Seun, like, you're supposed to do a little wrap up 2022 and now you're talking making everybody depressed here. But yeah, halfway done with third year. I feel like everyone around me, and again, back to the whole social media thing, I feel like everyone on social media is like done with third year. Everyone's like finished MS3, and I'm like, how? Like, I feel like I just started my third year. And I got 3 more rotations left, and I'm just like, Jesus, take the wheel. And they're already telling us to start thinking about residency and start planning our 4th year schedule. And I'm just like, ugh, man, everything is stressing me out. Everything is stressing me out, and I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. Take it back. But it's exciting because I know what I want to be when I grow up. So it's always exciting when you actually know what you want to do with your life. Now it's just a matter of figuring out things to do to get there and how to propel myself to that life. I'm excited because I think I've always known this is what I wanted to do. I've always had an inkling that this was what I wanted to do. And I think, you know, so far it's just kind of been confirmed for me. So I'm excited. Just have to figure out best path to do it and the girls will be good to go. But it's so crazy because I feel like just yesterday I started medical school, and to think that summer 2023 I'll be applying to residency. Oh my gosh. Where did the time go? Jesus, Oluwa, Jesus. Wow, I really suffered in medical school. When they say medical school showed me Pepe, we thank God for his mercies, his journey mercies, and we're gonna wrap up, finish what we gotta do, and get that degree, because that's what we're called to do. We gonna make it happen. We gonna make it happen, because that's what just needs to get done. That's what we gonna do, because the only way to go is up. I just need to get my, I don't even know what I'm doing for my 4th year schedule, honestly, but I'm gonna figure it out. I'm trying to reduce my stress, so even though I don't have a plan, I know it's gonna work itself out. But yeah, that's really all that's been going on for me. I mean, there's a lot more, but that's really all that's worth speaking about at this point. I'm just looking forward to a new year. Gonna focus on really getting myself to where I need to be. That will be it. Also, I've been doing my pre-med Zoom parties, so if you haven't been tuning into that, you should tune into that. Someone that gets a boyfriend, better misbehave. Alright guys, so I am done with my makeup. As you guys can see, it is giving, you know, Christmas spirit, kind of, not really, but we look good. This wasn't really much of a life update. It was kind of just, this is what 2022, I was about to say 2021, but it is actually 2022. This is what 2022 was giving, which was terrible, but we move. Honestly, this year needs to never happen again, and 2023 needs to give blessings. You know, obviously I was blessed this year. I'm alive. You know, that's the biggest blessing in and of itself. 2023 needs to give soft life. It needs to give no stress. You know, that's really what I'm working on next year, is keeping my stress level to a minimum as much as possible. It's giving boundary setting. It's giving saying no. It's giving saying, I'm sorry, I can't help you. It's giving you know what, this is more energy than it's worth. It's giving, I'm just gonna focus on my residency applications. That's what it's giving next year. But I hope you guys were able to resonate with some of the lessons learned that I shared. I think it can really be applicable to anyone. So if any of them resonated with you, or if you want to share some of your lessons learned this year, comment below. I'm just ready to see what 2023 has to bring. There's something about odd numbers that seem to work out better for me, so we'll see what happens next year. If you haven't been, tune into my med school Zoom parties. We have a couple more sessions for the next couple of days next week. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. You know, I don't post consistently, but when I do post, I think it's a good video. Quality over quantity is what I like to serve. I have some passion projects coming up. Hopefully I can do them. I'm late to church. That's one. Follow me on Instagram, because that's really where I'm more active than YouTube. That's really where you'll get the tea. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope you're able to spend this time with family and loved ones. Take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of other people. So fill your cup first before you try to fill others. And Happy New Year. You know, stay blessed, stay well. Make sure you do something useful for the world as well. Yeah, okay, goodbye.